Welcome back to the World Revolution News. My name is Thomas Jefferson and today is September 30th, 2011. Today's report is on the Greece bailout and the protest over the past week. Emily Pankhurst is here to explain the details.
Greek civil servants blocked the doors of many government ministries yesterday, in protest against austerity measures. This disrupted the start of talks with the EU, ECB, and the IMF in regards to the bailout Athens needs to avoid bankruptcy. They have returned for a report that will determine if the debt-ridden nation can again escape default. The Greek government announced unpopular pension cuts, layoffs, and taxes last week to lure back the IMF and European Union inspectors. As a result, State TV Net reported that nearly all major government departments were occupied by protesting employees, including the Ministries of Finance, Development, Justice, Labour, Health, Interior Affairs, and Agriculture. Even the police protested last week. The occupations began Thursday morning before official opening hours, and were to continue until today, said State TV Net. Some protesters burnt the emergency tax notes during a rally in front of the Finance Ministry yesterday. Greek civil servants are opposing a new round of pay cuts and layoffs imposed by the government, as it struggles to manage a runaway deficit. The mission from the European Union, the IMF, and the European Central Bank is assessing Greece's eligibility for further bailout money. They saved Greece from bankruptcy last year, and have returned for a report that will determine if the nation drowning in debt can again escape default. A month ago the auditors walked out on the country abruptly during meetings, unhappy with the government's efforts to tackle its mounting debt. Dozens of finance employees assembled in front of the Finance Ministry on Thursday to protest against the measures, yelling, "Take your bailout and leave." Then the protesters stopped some officials from European Union and IMF from entering the building. So the representatives had to meet Finance Minister Evangelos Venizelos in another government office. Subway and bus transport in Athens came to a halt for a second day on Tuesday, as workers in the sector staged fresh action against measures imposed by the government. Tax and customs officials also staged protests. More strikes are planned for this week. Also, they are expecting to culminate in a 24-hour nationwide walkout by civil servants on October the 5th. Taxi drivers, angry at new licensing rules, held peaceful protest rallies in central Athens. And in the northern city of Thessaloniki, fights broke out between riot police and students protesting education reform. With recession hitting harder into the Greek economy, and the unemployment rate soaring above 16%, the new austerity plan will bring more pain for families and companies that are already finding it hard to make ends meet. Some of the measures demanded by the IMF and ECB includes laying off 100,000 civil servants by 2014, and would start right away. Pensions and overtime payments are also to be cut, TV stations closed, heating oil taxes raised, and privatization sped up. Labor unions have called new anti-austerity walkouts and protests that may shake the lawmakers' resolve to approve the rest of the measures that are expected to come to a vote next month. Greece is one of 17 countries that share the euro in a currency union. Their situation is very complicated, given the extent of exposure by banks and insurance companies in the eurozone to Greek debt. That debt was once considered low risk, given its condition as a sovereign member, backed presumably by the good credit of the entire currency union. But now with its massive debt, its borrowing costs have soared. For some economic experts, a Greek default is not a if, but a when. Thorsten Koppel, a Queen's University economics professor, told Canadian Broadcast Corporation that it's inevitable, eventually a default will happen. Martin Schwerdtfeger, a TD Bank senior economist, also concurred by saying, "I actually believe they will end up defaulting, and it could happen anytime." And even if there is a second round of bailouts in the billions from the IMF and ECB, Schwerdtfeger predicts that by start of the new year things will get very difficult. Dean Popluel, chief currency strategist at ONDA, a foreign exchange brokerage in Toronto, said the following: "There is no faith in what the EU and the IMF have proposed for Greece. Capital markets are betting on a Greek default, as Greece's own populace is not going to accept the terms of this rescue, and contagion is a real concern hurting the euro, he said. If Greece defaults, it won't be the first government to not pay on its financial obligations, but its failure would definitely set a new record, both for size and complexity. At the moment, the biggest default in our history goes to Argentina, which failed to make good on its government debts in December 2001, to the tune of about $100 billion. Their unemployment skyrocketed immediately in Argentina following the default and had a tough recovery. Greece is on the books for almost 5 times as much as Argentina was, and the question of how a Greek default might unfold, and how far in the spectrum its effects might spread, is a substantially more complex question. The situation in Greece is getting worse every day. At first it was peaceful, then it was pushed and fought back. Now they are losing hope. People have lost it, and have nothing left to lose.
Remember until next time that it's the United Banking Cartel versus us, not me versus you, for we are the many, and they are the few.
Have a good weekend everyone.